I'm gonna record. Okay, so we are recording. So yesterday, let's recap on what happened. So yesterday, we were trying to look for the Rachel Hollis new video, right? Like we're all like, okay, let's pop on here. Like I was even reflecting back. I was like, how funny is it that I didn't even check to see if the video was up, because we had just been doing it for 10 weeks. We were 10 weeks in. Like I just went to the website and thought for sure, oh, I'll just be able to pull the video up. And like I kept looking at it and I kept looking at it and it kept saying challenge ended. And I was just like, this is not right. I was like, what is happening, And so we just ended up kind of like discovering like, wow, we haven't heard from her in like 6 or 7 days. Like the website hasn't said anything. Their Rachel Hollis company Instagram hadn't said anything. And I was like, and so we just kind of, did something else yesterday. We still ended up listening to Rachel Hollis, but you guys, I was actually like, I got off the meeting and I was like legit concerned. I was like searching her social media, searching Dave's social media, searching the business. I was like, did they just like fall off the face of the earth? Because my original thought was that their last posts were about the Black Lives Matters like movement. And I was like, oh my gosh, were they getting like death threats or something like that? Like I instantly went to like what they posted last and maybe something had happened with that. I did not think that they were about to announce that they were splitting up. So, so last night, most of you guys, I hope most of you guys kind of saw like in the challenge group or whether you're in our coach chat and we were talking about it. So Dave and Rachel had announced last night, both on their social media, that they were going to be splitting up. I was like, literally, I was sitting on the boat when like all the coaches were like messaging about it. So, like I opened up my phone like on the boat and I was just like, what? I was just like, that is not at all where I thought that was going. That is not at all what I thought was happening behind the scenes. Like I was concerned for their safety, not their relationship, And so I know some of you guys as well. Some of you guys messaged me and it was like, what? Like we are just so baffled. I couldn't sleep last night because of it, is what I felt like. Part of it was like in my head because I was like starting to analyze everything, because then I'm like going back through her social media and I'm like, wow, like, you guys had just posted. I mean, I just went back and I was like, you guys had just posted like a couple weeks ago about how to still have like hanky panky during quarantine. Like you guys had just posted about that. And I was like, I started to get kind of like frustrated for a second. Not that the divorce or not that like them separating has anything to do with me, but I just started to get a little frustrated because I was like, I've listened to marriage podcasts from you guys. I was like, what? I was just like, I feel duped. Yeah, fooled. Like I feel like, wait, what in the heck? Like I take advice from you and you're telling me that for the last 3 years you guys have been struggling. Then why did he leave his business and job to join you in your business? Why are you doing marriage podcasts? Why are you guys doing 90-day challenges together? I started to like literally analyze it, right? Like in my head, it still doesn't make sense to me. But, you guys, we never know. We never know. You never know. And maybe they really were trying everything they could to stay together. And maybe maybe they thought him leaving his job and working with her was what they needed to fix it. Maybe they thought that, doing the videos would help them love each other more. Right? Like maybe they thought by putting it out there or by saying like, this is what we do to stay together. Maybe they thought that would hold them together. And maybe quarantine just exposed them to each other. Right? Like maybe the quarantine, like, because maybe they were always busy. You do your thing. We're always going, flying, moving, traveling. And maybe they spent just enough time apart that they did work, right? Like maybe they were just like best friends and partners, and it did work because they were always traveling and always moving and always kind of going. And now that they were shoved forcefully to be with each other for like days on end, who knows? You know, who knows what was going on in that household? Who knows what the final straw was? Like only they will. And I hope that they keep it that way. Like I hope that like that's their marriage. You know what I mean? And so that's where I've kind of been like analyzing it since yesterday, like going back and forth on it. Like, guys, I was like really upset yesterday. Like I was like pissed, I felt like when I found out, because I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what in the heck? Like it just blew my mind. And then I was just like, it's not about me, you know? It's totally not about me. And I can only imagine how long they probably did hold off telling that because of the position they were in, you know, or how hard it was to finally come to that decision, knowing that they had produced content as a married couple, right? Like if we could just put ourselves in their shoes for a second, I can only imagine how hard it was and why it probably took them 6 or 7 days to post about it, right? Like I could only imagine how hard that would be. So I'm gonna read these comments real quick. But the thing is, they never talked about. I know, Alicia. I agree. I totally agree. Like, what the heck? Like, don't pretend everything is like butterflies. And like, to me, like the way they always talked about like make out sessions and like date your what, I was like, oh my god, am I gonna not doing enough? Because I feel like they've been together forever and they've got like 4 kids and somehow they're still like finding ways to like love on each other. And I just like, you're right, the image that they created in my mind, and maybe I put them on a pedestal as well. We have to remember that, like maybe we put them there and we heard and thought what we kind of wanted to, but I really feel that they also created an image of what they wanted us to see. You know, I think that they really kind of probably, maybe even now that I look at it, probably went above and beyond to try to make it look a certain way. You know, like if you have to like you always know those people that are like, oh, we're so in love, we're so in love, we're so in love, look at us all in love, and then they break up. And you're like, oh, I thought you guys were so in love. You know? And it's interesting, I think sometimes when we feel like we need to flash it, usually there is something underlining, right? Like if we ever feel like we need to like make up for something, or cover up something, we go above and beyond, right? And so maybe that was, I don't know, guys, I'm still like processing it. I still go back and forth with it. Sorry, I gotta read these comments, you guys. I love these comments because they're like, yeah, I think that like, I'm disappointed just like the guy being Susan. Yes, yeah, dude, guys, read Tennille's conversation, little thing here. Like, you guys, that's the thing is like, yeah, like the guy that just committed suicide is like, we just talked to you. What? How do you not say something? Right? Like, where did this come from? Where do we have this disconnect from who we are and who we pretend to be on social media? Right? Or like, who you were when I just saw you last is not who you are when you're sitting at home alone. There's like a disconnect somewhere. And it bothers me. It really bothers me that we can have that big of a disconnect, that we can put this pretty little storefront on, but in the back in your inventory, it's a freaking mess, right? Like, where do we go wrong when it comes to stuff like that, that we feel that we can't tell each other, hey, I'm actually struggling. I'm actually struggling in my marriage, or I'm actually struggling in life. Instead of pretending everything is fine, it kind of blows my mind a little bit. You had it out?
Yeah, she gets on my nerves. I get on hers. So
Just so you guys know.
Yeah. My kid is
It's not a secret.
yeah. And if anything ever goes south, you'll be the first to know. I'm putting that shit on blast.
Get out of
I'm
here.
going to get some dinner.
All right. Oh, spear gun. All right. Showing off now. Got my hair.
Out of here.
All right. Bye. Have fun.
Safe.
Love you.
Come back in 1 piece.
You guys, but for real, like, I gotta read these comments. Okay, always talking about being transparent. Yes, they are. Exactly. I agree, Kristen. I agree. Yes, like the ego. Oh, that ego, Brittany. Yes. Oh my gosh, dude, I can only imagine where her ego was. You know, like how hard it. And then I go back and forth because I'm like, God, how hard it was it to let your ego down to actually have to say that. But then I'm like, how long did your ego hold on to this image that you were creating? You know? Oh my gosh, Elika, no freaking way. What are the odds? You must have been like inner tuned with them. Oh gosh. I literally, you guys, like last night, not that I like felt like I was gonna cry about it, like but I was like I was very emotionally like invested in it. Like I just felt like I was really, really upset about it. I'm reading your guys' comments as I'm trying to talk. It's not working. I don't think they would have been open and honest with struggles. I actually really, really, really wonder that, Elika. Like, and they said that they were going to like counseling and all this stuff, but I'm just like, but you weren't honest in your problems. Like, I don't know. It's so weird. It's so weird to me. And it does make me wonder if they would have been honest from the beginning that they were struggling and not pretended that they were over here doing marriage podcasts for everybody else. Maybe they would have actually made it. But then they did all this years of lying. I mean, years of lying. To me, that's lying, right? Like, does anybody else feel that way? Like, to me, like, you were not being honest with your viewers. And it made me question what else I listened to from her. And I don't like that because I really like Rachel and I don't ever want to question what she's telling me. But then I'm like, wow, but the most important thing I think that you guys had, which was a joint relationship and business and company, was a lie. So I think that we could maybe, I don't know if it had to do with the business or not. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out how they're even planning on still being business partners. I don't see how that works. I mean, to me, like, how could you ever meet someone else? You know, like if they were, you know what I mean? Like, I think at this point, like, okay, if you're going to choose not to be happy, maybe there's somebody out there that could make you happy, you know? How would you plan to ever meet anybody else? Like, you're still holding on to so much, which is actually interesting because like Elika and I, yeah, she's supposed to have a new book coming out. They're supposed to be doing Rise podcasts. Like, they're supposed to be doing Rise events. Like, how, like, I'm not going to go to a Rise event and like listen to them talk. Like, is he still gonna be there, like opening up for her? Because I'm probably gonna like throw something at him. I'd be like the person with like a milkshake and like, like, don't hurt my Rachel. Like, I don't know. Maybe it was her problem. Maybe it was her fault. The reason why, but who knows? But if I find out he like cheated on her or something, I'm definitely throwing a milkshake at him. Yeah, you guys, I don't know. I had a lot of emotions about it. I have like just crazy. Yeah, that's true, Alicia. Autumn Calabrese does work with her ex-husband. He's like her like gopher. He's like does everything for her. And she says they actually get along better now than they did when they were together as a couple. So I don't know. Maybe we're just also getting, and maybe that's like the traditional mindset that I have as well. That's couples and families need to look a certain way. And maybe that's just no longer what it's about, right? Like maybe families can look different for everybody. And maybe we need people in a public eye to be willing to do that, willing to be different. Tessa, I hear you. Talk, please.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, honestly, how Autumn says, her and her ex-husband get along better. And being divorced from the same person and remarrying the same person, I probably have a lot more insight because there was so many problems that we had. I mean, we went through a lot. His best friend was killed in an accident. We lost a guy that was on our fire department. We lost a child together. I mean, and I know a lot of the things, like even Rachel and her husband have went through a lot of those things of miscarriages and just problems like that. Like, it's such a strain that you deal with it in so many different ways. Like when his best friend died, he didn't want to talk about it. I mean, they were literally like brothers, grew up across the street from each other, but he didn't want to talk about it. He kept it all in. Then, we lost a child together, and I was still pregnant when I lost her. So it wasn't like she was here and he got to form that relationship. So he didn't understand it at all. And so it was me trying to deal with a lot of those emotions and him not knowing how to help me deal with those because he just couldn't understand it. Like, he felt the loss of, like, we lost a daughter, but that connection and everything else, it was something that he couldn't understand. And then we lost another guy that was on our fire department that was killed in an accident. Another guy was seriously injured in the accident, and that brought back a lot of memories for him. So there was just like so much that it stacks and it stacks and it stacks. And you're trying to work on yourself, but you're trying to help the other person work out their issues also. And it doesn't work because egos get involved. Your ego and your pride gets involved, and you think you're okay and you're going to go your day to day and it's just going to be fine. But until you can make that break, and it could be something that, they are ending their marriage because they can't just have a separation, because you have a separation, and a separation, people still expect you to work on things. Ending it gives them that time, and it did for him and I, to be able to heal and really look at like what was going on in each of our lives separately. Although we still, we got along really well with the kids. We swapped the kids and stuff like that. I mean, we were always there for our kids. So we were still connected in that way. But we needed that time to take that step back and be like, okay, I got to work on me. There's some stuff I need to work through. There was stuff that he needed to work through. And it's funny too, because in that time you also date, but you then realize like, that's your person. Like, you have been through a lot of stuff, and you can look at the other guy, like guys I dated in that time, and it was like, it was surface. Like, I didn't let them in. They didn't know like a lot of what was going on. So it was a lot of me on the surface they were getting to know, and the person I wanted them to know. And then that starts issues, because then you're not being your true self. So it took us a couple of years, but it came back to the point, and we always joke, we're like, well, you're the only one that can actually like deal with me. And like, and it goes both ways. But it's not that like we can only deal with each other. We understand what each other have been through. We worked through those problems. And then we got remarried again in 2017. And we have never been stronger. Like, we learned to talk to each other. We learned that when we're angry, we don't talk to each other. We talk with each other. We're not talking to each other. We talk with each other. And if it's a point of like something happens and we get so mad to the point that we just can't talk, it's like, I just can't talk to you right now. And we both understand what that means. We need a moment to kind of gain our thoughts, because we don't want to say something that we're going to regret in the end. And we take that time, and then we circle back around and we talk about it. In the past I'd say Jackson's going to be 7 now. So in the past 7 years that we've been back together and been remarried for 3, we have not had an argument. We have not raised our voice at each other. we don't have arguments anymore because we learned that that's not the way to communicate with each other. You got to take that moment, and although in the heat of the moment you want to like and be right at that person, you have to realize and be that person to step back and say, you know, we can't talk about this right now because both of us need to kind of calm down and think about it, and then we'll circle back. And we always do. And we've not had an argument since then. And it really, coming from my perspective, I see where they're at. I think a lot of the shock and awe of it is like, I mean, people in our lives knew that we had problems and things that were going on, but for them, they're in such a public eye, and so they felt like they needed to put that front up. But doing that, it takes so much energy that you can't fix anything behind the scenes because you're using so much energy to display what you feel the world needs to see. You don't have the extra time to take the time to try to fix something. And it is a she said, he said game. You put the blame on somebody else until you actually realize what your role in that situation was. And it could be that neither of the two cheated or anything. I don't know. They did. Things happen. I mean, for ours, it wasn't that kind of situation. I mean, ours was just, we both had such our own things that, you know, life just kept moving on and kept moving on. And, you know, we felt like we had to just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. So we never took the time to actually go through the steps. And I think for him and her, that's, you know, probably what it was. I mean, she talks about in her books how they had miscarriages and stuff, but she even displayed in her books that like he didn't really understand either what she was going through, and her postpartum depression that she went through, he didn't really understand what it was. So for him also, he didn't understand what she was going through, so how was he going to help her with that? And when you're building a business like that, and that momentum from the business goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, you don't have the time to take back and step back and say, okay, listen, there's something really going on here and we got to take the time to fix it, because you don't want to stop the momentum of what you've been trying to build to try to fix something that you already thought you have built. So just for me, like, I take it on both sides. I am kind of like, what? Like nothing was said, and, you know, people are going to feel like they're fooled and everything. I think for them though, a lot of it was self-preservation, and they just felt like they were going to get a handle on it and do it. And they come to the realization that we're not going to. And probably scary as hell for them to have to step out of that and admit to people that, like, you know what, we were wrong. Because that's what you've built your entire business and your entire brand on. So now it's like, you know, they have to come back from that also. And trying to even come out and say, hey, we're separating and doing this, for them, the best thing is probably to end it and just try to work it out in a slow process. Because like I said, for Jeremy and I, it took almost 3 years to work out that slow process to realize, yeah, we had a lot of shit going on, but we still completely love each other. And there's nobody else in this world for either of us. So, I mean, that's just my point of view. I don't know, coming in and out of that and just being remarried to the same person. And it's so funny because people are like, oh, you were married before. And we're like, yeah, to that one. And they're like, what? Because like, I had never even changed my last name. So like I kept my married name, and when we went to get our marriage certificate the second time, they were so completely confused as to like why I was marrying him. And like, it was like, this isn't like a cousin situation or anything, is it? Like, and then going to the BMV and then like trying to get your license and all that renewed and everything like that. And yeah, it's pretty freaking funny. It was really confusing because, ladies, when you go to get like your official license to fly, which you have to have, like if you're going to fly, you have to have like your, you know, whatever license. And I take in like a marriage certificate from our first marriage, because like you have to have your marriage certificate, you have to have like your birth certificate and all that, and then your divorce decree if you've been divorced, and then your new marriage certificate. And they're looking at it like, is this the same person? Like, your name's the same. Yes, it is.
It's all me.
Fine, it's fine. We're just insane. We're crazy. But I mean, it takes a lot, and it takes a lot of you admitting your own fault in something and just not blaming it on somebody else, and realizing what your role in it is and where you failed, because you have to admit that you're a failure. And that's really, really hard, especially for somebody like her and him, now that he's getting into it, of being a motivational speaker and like everybody being so inspired by you. And, you know, you're supposed to be this person, of admitting that you failed at something so huge, that was such a huge part of your persona. Like, that's a huge hit to an ego. Huge hit to an ego.
Absolutely. And, you know, I really wonder if it ever would have happened had quarantine not happened. I really don't think so. I really don't think so. I don't think they would have ever had that time, or like, had this time never happened to them, they probably would have just kept right on going.
Yeah.
And it probably would have taken them 10 years or 5 years from now to even realize what had happened, and then they would be even further in it, you know. It's Go ahead, Tess.
Well, and I think that's the thing too, because I think Shelby made a comment yesterday, like in our chat, about, you know, why people stay together so long and then all of a sudden they divorce. Well, it's because they probably mostly had kids at home. And it's not until like your kids start leaving the house because you're not as busy, you're not running around doing things. And then you discover that the person that you married 18, 20 years ago is not that same person anymore, but you've not had the time to learn who that person is. Like, you still have in your mind, you know, that person that you met 18 or 20, 25 years before is totally not that person, but you've been so busy with life. And, you know, at the same time that kids are moving, I mean, mostly nowadays, and it's kind of, you know, when people are having kids are changing, but you're also retiring, your kids are moving out of the house, and you're discovering that the person that you're living with is a complete stranger and you have no idea who they are. And so now, like, all these people are getting divorced when their kids are almost graduated out of high school, or their last one's getting ready to leave, and they're coming to this kid that's like 16, 17, 18 years old and be like, yeah, sorry, mom and dad's getting divorced. And the kid's like, huh? You know, they're just as confused as the situation. But it's because people really aren't taking the time to learn who they're married with. Like, they're not taking the time to date their spouse anymore, because it's just like, oh, well, I have them now, you know, we're good, got them. But, you know, and I think that's one thing, like Callie, I know she's not on here and we see her in the chat, but they do a date night every week. Like, and Jeremy and I, it's not every week, but we at least once a month try to have that date night that it's just us. Or it doesn't even have to be a full night. It's a few hours. Like, we'll go to Lowe's or Menards or Kohl's, or it doesn't matter. It's a few hours that it's just a few hours of him and I to talk with no distractions. And I think that's a lot of everybody's thing, is they kind of forget that you still have to date your spouse. You still have to spend that alone time together to really understand who they are or what's going on in their life. Because I mean, there's even times now, like, you know, Jeremy and I are together and we sit down every night and we talk, but there's other times that, you know, he doesn't know a lot of the conversations that happen between me and my mom or my sisters. And I don't know a lot of conversations that happened between him and his mom. Him and his mom have a very strained relationship. Like, it's not good. And he holds a lot of that in. And sometimes it takes that time of us being alone when he lets that out.
Yeah.
That's my word of advice, is date your spouse, ladies. Date your spouse.
Dude, I actually, speaking of dating your spouse, so Mike and I, we have not had a night to ourselves since our wedding, which was in January. And it has totally been taking a toll on us. I mean, we spend a lot of time together anyway, so quarantine for us was just like pretty much normal life. It really wasn't much different than how we already were, because we always spend a lot of time together. Like, our family, we're a trio. Like, people, like, I go to job sites with Mike, and I'll just sit and like work, and like Derek will like hang out with us. Like we're just like a little trio. And so, but we have not had a date night in 6 months. And I was like, and Mike and I were just like, oh my gosh. And well, my mom came down, and we're gonna go up to West Palm Beach for this wake competition on Saturday. And I just looked at my mom and I was like, do you mind if Mike and I go up 2 days before you guys? I was like, will you just stay here with Derek, and Mike and I can go up for 2 days and just stay in the hotel, just him and I. And she was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I was like, thank you. Like, I just know we need it. Like, even though we spend a lot of time together, we have a 5-year-old sitting in between us, right? Like, or he's working, I'm working, and da 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 da. You know, like we're always still like, and especially since I work from home, like even though we're quarantined at home, I was working, right? And so like we have not had that specific time to just be like, let's put the phones down, let's go to eat, or let's go do this, and let's just me and you focus on each other. It's like, it's interesting, like when you realize you're like, wow, even though we've been in quarantine, we haven't had time together, really. Like our time together that we enjoy, like where we can maybe get dressed up and go eat and kind of like walk around somewhere, just be with him and I, you know. It's always like, okay, if we're going out, make sure we're wearing your face mask, make sure we're going to the grocery store. And, you know what I mean? It was like that. And so I think it's interesting that you even mentioned, like, so Callie, she's one of our coaches, her and her husband go on a date night every Friday, and she gets super dressed up and they go out and they go to dinner, and she's like, it's the best thing ever, you know. And can't say that's going to be the best thing ever for every relationship, but I think it's something to say that, like, taking that specific time for your loved one, for your spouse, is so important. And I'm kind of reflecting back on like Rachel and Dave, and like maybe they were just in so go mode that the quarantine exposed a lot for them. It exposed a lot of where they really were, right? Like not where they thought they were, because they were always doing books, and she's writing and he's doing the rise, and they're doing this and da 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 da. And you know, when everything's good, of course they're good, right? Like it's easy to enjoy life when things are going right, right? Like it's easy to be like, oh, we're so in love because we get to do all of this and do all of that, and go to Hawaii and go to my family, you know, do all these conferences. Of course it was good, right? But what exposes us is how we act when things aren't good, or how are things really when you're struggling, right? Like for me, like I've pictured them, quarantine exposed them to each other, you know, like they were exposed to each other that, wow, we're not at all what we think we are. We're not at all what we're trying to say we are. And who knows how long in quarantine they've wanted to tell us. Like I actually thought about going back to the videos and like rewatching video 1 compared to that video 10. I mean, you guys even saw it. Like she even talked about it. She's like, oh, don't mind my hair, and I just did a photo shoot. And I'm like, did you? Or did you just get in a fight with your husband and half your shit's done and you knew you had to do this video? And you know what I mean? I was like, did you? Because like, I don't know.
It is. And I noticed that like when you and I were talking yesterday, I'm like, you can see a difference from video 1 to video 10.
Oh yeah.
They were a lot longer. They were more in depth. I mean, and you could even tell an awkwardness in his and her video when they're talking. There's like an awkwardness. But then you look at video 10 that she did, and when I, you know, when we opened it to watch it, I'm like, whoa, Rachel, what's going on with you today, girl? And it was very short. The last few videos they did were very short. And then video 10, she's just like, yeah, okay, well, that's all I got to say today. Bye. And it's not, that wasn't her. Like you could see slowly as like, she still had that momentum first coming in of like, oh yeah, okay, we're going to do this and we got this. And then life happened, and then they're together. and then they start having to be with each other because nobody else is around. The kids were there, but there weren't the other million distractions that they have in a day that are around. And you're like, shit.
Yeah.
Now we got to deal with some stuff.
Or maybe the nannies around.
And I agree, Carrie. Like, so Jeremy and I's was the same. I was reading your comment about like dated quick, engaged quick, had a baby. Like Jeremy and I weren't together probably 6 months when I got pregnant with Bryce. So we were still trying to like figure each other date, you know. I mean, I was 18 when we started dating. So like we were into that, you know, I'm younger. He's 5 years older than I am, but he also had that time in being 5 years older than I was of experiencing the outside world with friends and going and doing things and living life. I was 18. I hadn't done that. Not at all. Like I had just graduated high school that May, turned 18 in September. Like I didn't know, you know, life and living. So, I mean, for us, that was a lot of struggle too, because I went from graduating high school to dating him to being pregnant with my first kid and trying to go to college at the same time. And then like, you know, we're getting a house and setting up a life and getting married and like trying to learn about each other along that way also of, you know, those things that you like or don't like with somebody. And it's crazy. And you get wrapped up into that. And I think that it all really kind of started from there and just had that snowball effect of going down from there because, you know, then we had Caleb and then, you know, we lost Lindsay and Nathan was killed. Bryce was like 6 months old when Nathan, his best friend, was killed. So, I mean, that was all at the beginning of our relationship also. And it was just like, it was almost a doom to fail at the start because we were both young and didn't have the insight that we had now of how to work on things. So you just kind of struggle through it and you get through it because now you're expected to be together and you're expected to stay together. And it's really, really hard to do.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it just, like I said, it all snowballs into that effect. And for me, even when we were separated, you know, and I lost Gabe, another child, that set me back. And he didn't, you know, we were still together, we were still friends, but he didn't know how to, you know, help me handle that. So that was another big thing that was in our life that we had to overcome, that I had to overcome, because again, he didn't know what I was going through. He didn't know what I was doing, but he was there for me the entire time. He was there for me. And that meant the world to me, that it wasn't like, you know, I'd been, you know, I was with another guy. I was pregnant, had another guy's baby, but he was still there. And that showed me the man that he was. And that after, like, you know, he was still always there. And then I had Jackson, and that kid just totally, completely changed our worlds both. And he brought us together. He brought us back together. And he, like, literally was the saving grace of our family, our entire family, because my entire family had went through hurt and had went through pain. And he was like that little rainbow of sunshine that came into everybody's life and completely changed everything for us. He's a literal pain in the butt now, but I mean, I love him still. But it's like, you have to continue that relationship with your spouse. And Alicia, you're totally right. I was reading your comment. I think that was one thing that was really hard for us, is my mom babysat our kids. So for me, like, she was the person that I trusted with my kids. Like, I had sisters that would watch them, but they had their own kids. But my mom was the person that babysat our kids. So for me, a lot of times I felt like, you know, she watched them all week. Like, I felt bad for having her watch them on the weekend, because I'm like, you always have kids. And it's still to this day, like, I'm actually honest, like, glad that I have Bryce, as old as he is, and, you know, Caleb's getting older. Like, we can leave the house and leave the kids, but having younger kids, even at that fact, like, you have to have somebody outside of your family that you can trust, because that is so hard to have to rely on family like that to like watch them, because for them and for your mom and dad, they've been married a long time. So they're not dating. They're in that, you know, era of, well, we're together and we're married, not understanding that, you know, Joel isn't home a lot of the time. So you and him don't get to connect. So you don't know each other. And that's a hard thing to have to admit and say, but you don't know each other. Like, you know each other when you spend the time together, but you don't really know who each other is because you're not there. You know, you're not in each other's lives every day. Even if you talk or whatever, it's surface things that you're doing in life. So I really hope for you. I'll watch Malia. I don't care. But you do need to find that person that you can trust to watch her, to get that time with him, because you really, really do need it. You really do need it. And I hope you do get that, girl. I really do.
Danielle, I think I saw your little hand up. Go ahead.
Let me put my hand down. Okay. Y'all, we have 4 kids, Dwayne and I. So I just kind of wanted to throw some advice out there. I'm not here to tell you that our marriage is perfect, but I am super blessed. Like, I got a pretty good husband, and our family has been super blessed. But you have to realize you have kids that as a mom and a parent, like, you start to focus on your kids a lot. And that's what we do as moms. Like, we're all about our kids, you know, 24/7. We're all about our kids. I'm a stay-at-home mom, like, with my kids 24/7. But I chose that. I'm okay with that. But you have to realize your husband comes first. Okay? You have to realize my husband works every day. So when he comes home, I have to make him a priority. Like, when he walks in that door and I'm running around with the kids and I ignore him coming in that door and I'm just doing my things with the kids and still taking care of the kids, and I ignore him and he comes inside and just, you know, mopes around and goes upstairs and takes a shower, like, I'm ignoring him. How does that make him feel? You know? So I want you, and if you don't have kids, take this advice because it will happen. Okay? So when your husband comes home, if he's the work husband and he comes home, greet him at the door. Okay? Greet him at the door. Open the door. Make eye contact with him and say, hey, I call my husband Love. That's what I call him. Hey, Love, how's your day? Like, how important does that make your husband feel? Like, I know I got crazy kids running around the house making all kinds of noise, but when he walks in that door and I give him my eye contact and my full attention and say, how was your day? You are still my number one. You are still important to me. I want to know how you're doing. So I just want to throw that out there. And if you're a believer in faith, if you believe in God, or if you don't, I pray for my husband daily. I'll show you this. I'll show you these books that I have. But the power of a praying wife. Okay, if you want to become close to your husband, I'm not trying to talk you into this if you're not a believer, whatever. But this is what has worked for me. Okay, so that's what I want to share. The power of a praying wife. Okay, I pray for my husband daily. Okay, I pray for his struggles. I pray for his addictions, or I pray for his confidence. I pray for his destination. Okay, and I have this one, and the power of a praying parent. I pray for my kids daily. Every night when I put my kids down to bed, I pray over them. Okay, I try to protect them as much as I can. And then when I just started this about a month ago, when my husband leaves for work, you know, I pray for my kids tonight, and he knows that. Okay, he doesn't do it, whatever. He does his thing. You do your thing, I do my thing. But when he leaves for work, I pray over him. He gets so mad at me. I don't do it every day because I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be, but some days I just feel it and I touch his head and I pray over him for him to have a good day. I don't go on and pray for 10 minutes. It literally takes 10 seconds to say, God, watch over my husband, keep him safe, and let him have a good day. You know, he sees me doing it to my kids, so I need to also make him a priority. So that's all I'm saying. Just make your husband a priority, look him in the eyes, and say, how are you doing? What can I do for you? That's my advice today.
It's so true, Tennille, because that is the first thing. Like, I mean, Jeremy and I both work, but I mean, sometimes I get home before him, sometimes he gets home before me. But that is the first thing. As soon as we get home from work every day, we greet each other. Hey, how are you, babe? How was your day? Give him a kiss. It was good. You know, we always sit down and we talk at supper time, but it's that acknowledging them that they're a part of your day. We'll randomly send messages throughout the day of like, hey, how's your day going? Or what's going on? You know, good morning. Like, even though like I've been home, I still like, I'll hear him because I've been downstairs. I'll get up. I just don't stay asleep or stay here. I'll get up and I'll go in the kitchen and be like, hey, babe, good morning. And I'll give him a kiss. And it's as easy as that. And then I'll go back to bed. But it really is acknowledging that your spouse is a part of that. Like, and, you know, like you did say, like, your spouse comes before your kids. Like, I love my kids, love them, would die for them. But he comes before them because without us being a team, it all falls apart. Like, we have to work together and be together. And Melissa, reading your comment, it's true. Communication is not always easy. Like, it is hard. And that is one thing that, you know, when in our first marriage, we didn't have it and it failed because we did not communicate. And it's hard because if you're the one that wants to talk and the other person isn't willing to talk to you, it's something that's so hard to overcome, and to get them to open up. I mean, a lot of times they just don't want to be open. They don't want to admit that there's faults or that there's things wrong. They want to glaze over it. And my heart truly hurts for you if you can't communicate. It really does. I really hope that if you work on it or I mean, I don't know your situation, but I mean, it really does hurt that you can't communicate with them, because I know what that does in a marriage, and I know that's what it did in our marriage. And I truly want to cry for you because that makes me very, very sad. It makes me very sad because I know what that does in a marriage. And it's not easy. It's very, very hard. It's very hard to come over that. And it took us a lot of work and a lot of heartache to break through that. And especially if you have kids, it's so much harder because you don't want to feel like you're ruining your kid's life by making a choice that makes you happier. And I know that that's probably something that even, you know, Rachel and David went through, is, you know, they have kids, and to go through that, it's so hard. And I mean, I take a lot of guilt, and it took me a long time to work through that guilt of feeling like I somehow hurt my kids. But I think in the end, it actually showed my kids how strong we were to be able to admit that what we were doing wasn't working, and to work through it, and then especially to get back together and to be able to work it out. But it is really, really hard, and my heart really hurts for you. It really does, girl. I'm here to talk if you want to talk. Anytime you can reach out. I know it's hard to not be able to communicate and to keep things to yourself. And if you look on the screen, you have an immense amount of woman power behind you. but I know it's not the same as being able to talk to your spouse or your significant other. That is really, really hard. And I really am going to pray for you that you can at least get him to maybe open up and talk a little bit to you to try to move something in a momentum, and start small. I mean, that's my biggest thing I can say as advice that I can give, being down that road and doing it, is start small. And even if it's just taking that date night or some personal time to yourselves and small talk, and open it up and take it in steps. Because, Rome wasn't built overnight, and none of us became healthy overnight. So it's taking it in small steps and in stride, and just persevere and try. And you'll come to a point, and you'll come to a day, if you realize it's not going to happen, that day will come and you'll be able to realize it. And you'll know that you did everything that you possibly could in your power to try to fix that situation. So I will pray for you, lady.
I don't even know what to say. Okay, so the first thing I thought in my mind was, we are so lucky that Rachel and Dave spoke up about this. Because maybe they couldn't fix theirs because they waited too long. But maybe she just saved every single one of ours. I don't know, had they not done what they did, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now. And obviously, this discussion needs to happen. This is a direction that we've never been before. We've never really delved into relationships, husbands, family, that kind of thing. We're always like, healthy, our own mindset, all of that stuff. Let's focus on all the stuff we know we can control ourselves. This is a really interesting topic. I have so many emotions and so many thoughts in my head, like I'm trying to process them all as I'm listening to you guys, and I'm reading the chat, and I'm listening to you guys and reading, and I'm just like, wow, this is so much bigger than I can even imagine. Melissa, I love you, girl. And I think that we're going to be able to work through it. I think you're going to honestly, just opening up about it, even that much, is so good. It's a step in the right direction, right? Tessa, I think I saw your hand again. Go ahead if you want to. You guys jump in whenever.
No, I was just saying, it's that whole, you've put it out there now. Mm-hmm. And that, even just for you, you're not the alcoholic, but you putting that out there is put out there, and that's not something that you have to keep inside and try to keep to yourself anymore. And that, girl, is such a hard step. It is such a hard step for you to be able to admit that. Yeah. That is something to be proud of, that is a first step for you. I mean, and I put in my comment, I lived that life. My dad was a functioning alcoholic, and he was not a nice alcoholic. He was an asshole. He made sure that we had what we needed most of the time, but that was not his priority. Alcohol was his priority. And if you know my dad now, if any of you ladies were to meet my dad now, he is like a pastor. He does prison ministry, and he goes and he talks to prisoners about their addictions and tries to get them to help overcome their lives. He works with guys in halfway houses. He is a completely different person. But it took him realizing it took one night for him to realize what he was going to lose in life and what was the most important to him in life. And literally my mom beat the shit out of him, but that's a whole nother funny story. But I was 9 years old, and it took that one night for him to realize, and my mom saying enough is enough and I'm not dealing with this anymore, and her leaving and her taking us, for him to clean up his act and to realize like what was truly important to him in life, and it wasn't alcohol. And you know, it's hard to say, but that may be what it takes for him if he can't admit that he has that problem and has that issue and isn't willing to work on it. Like, you have to think about your self-preservation and your kids and how that affects your kids, because let me tell you, living that life most of my childhood, it's not easy, and it does stuff to you later in life that you don't realize. And it is a struggle that as they get older and they begin to realize more and more, you're going to have to take that into consideration, that yeah, you want to stay married and you want to be with that person, but putting yourself first and your kids first and their lives first is going to be a bigger issue. Because if somebody can't admit that they have a problem and they're not willing to work on it, you ain't going to be able to do that for them. It doesn't matter how much you talk to them, what you do for them, and until they're able to even be able to fix that themselves. And that goes with any addiction. I mean, you all know the problems that some of you know the problems that I've had with Jackson's dad. His dad is a drug addict, and he could care less, because that's, you know, having an addiction it's a hard thing, and I've been on both sides of it, and it's something that they can't control, and people don't understand that. But to try to put yourself in that mindset, it's really, really hard. It's the same as, you know, people are addicted to working out, people are addicted to food. There's different addictions that are in life, and it's hard to understand those addictions. But sometimes, you know, as for me, and I mean, Jackson was about 2, and it came to a point in time of like, I can't do this anymore. I can't try to make him have a relationship with him anymore. I can't try to force him to be a dad, because that's not where his head's at. That's not where he wants to be. That's not his priority in life. And, you know, he saw him, but it's that whole functioning. They're functioning. They're there, but they're not there. They're there to put that face on. They're there to be present, but they're not truly present in your life or your children's life. And you're very strong to just be able to admit that and to put that out there and to say it, because for you, that's a huge step for you. And I know it's a huge step for you. Being there in my childhood, and my mom tried to deny it for years and years and years. I know that's a huge step for you, girl. And I love you.
I agree. So, wow, what a powerful conversation we're having right now. It's just like kind of reflecting back on like what's happening right now. And I'm like, I feel like I have so many things I want to say, and I'm like, we're going to need the whole week on this, aren't we? Okay. I was like, we're going to need a week of marriage. It's the week of marriage. That's just like what I just said. Just so you guys know, the rest of the week is going to be about relationships and marriage, and like finding a way to be truthful with our spouse. Truthful. Okay. I think that we sugarcoat a lot of things as women, for our kids, for our family, and definitely for our husbands. I think that we sugarcoat the way we actually feel, so we don't have to burden him with all of our emotions. And what's happening is the thought in my head that comes in, that one of the quotes that really stuck with me, like when I first started coaching, I first really started to like shift my mindset about my relationship, is what's happening is what I'm allowing. I'm allowing that. So what's happening in your life right now is happening because we're allowing it. Okay? So if there is something happening we have to be willing to change us first. And maybe that is saying, I'm no longer allowing that in my life. And I had to do that. You guys, speaking of alcoholics, Mike was an alcoholic. Absolutely. We have not drank for the last 6 months since we got married. We decided that was the next step for us. But I will tell you, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I've picked up Mike off the side of a road before, drunk in a ditch. 6 months pregnant. Had to go find him at 2 a.m. because his friend said he just walked off. I had to go find him, found him in a ditch, drunk. Right? Like, I've been there. So, like, if you guys want to talk about alcoholic husbands, I've been there. What I did, though, is I stopped allowing it to stop me from being who I was. I was like, listen, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm done with that. And if you're not done with that, I'm done with you too. Because I cannot allow this to control me the way it is. I had to respect myself and say, I'm no longer allowing that in my life. And you know what happened? He stepped up and rose to the occasion. Because he knew that I was more important, right? He made that decision, but without me saying, I'm no longer allowing that, then it would have never happened.
It's so true, because when Jeremy and I first got together, I mean, he was a partier. His friends went to Put-in-Bay all the time. They did all this stuff. They partied. I would drink, but I didn't drink because my grandpa was an alcoholic. My dad was an alcoholic. I knew if I did where that would take me in life, and I did not want that in my life. And I was probably trying to think. I was like 3 or 4 months pregnant with Bryce, and it was during deer season, and him and his buddies had been out. They'd been at one of his friends' house, Nathan, actually, the one that had passed away, and they got shit-ass drunk. They were having fun in the hot tub. Now, I'm at home, like, pregnant, and he comes strolling in at 2 a.m. in the morning, drunk, thinking he's all funny and stuff. And right there in that relationship, I was like, yeah, if you're going to do this shit, we're not going to be together. I lived with an alcoholic for most of my life and a recovering alcoholic still. I'm not putting up with it. I'm not doing it. No, I will not have that in my life. I'm not going to be with that person. And he did. He still drinks, but not like that. He realized in life that that was not going to get him where he wanted if he wanted to be with me or be with his son. But it's that whole allowing it and allowing it in life. And I think a lot of times we allow things because, going back to we don't know each other, or we don't know what our spouse wants. Like, we just assume. And, you assume that your spouse knows you. You assume that you know that your spouse knows what you want, but sometimes you actually just have to tell them. Men, creatures, ain't the brightest sometimes anyway, ladies. But you have to tell them what you want. You can't beat around the bush, or you can't, just insinuate it. Like, they need you to tell them what you need. And you can't expect them to fix something either if you don't tell them that it's wrong and you allow it in your life. Because you're not going to get anywhere by just allowing it to be there. You're going to stay the same, and nothing's going to change. And I love that. That's perfect. Allowing it to be in your life, because if you allow it, they assume that it's just okay. And they're just going to continue to do whatever. And the same for you. You need to talk with them of, what can I do? Because we as wives, a lot of times, You know, we think we do everything perfectly and, you know, we're taking care of the kids and we're cleaning the house or we're cooking supper or we're doing this and we're doing our job. And we just assume that we're perfect and we're doing everything fine too. And we all can say that we all think that. But there's a lot of times that there's a lot of shit that we're doing wrong. But maybe your husband doesn't want to say anything because he doesn't want to rock that boat. And it might just take you saying, hey, honey, is there anything you need or anything that, you know, you would like me to do? Or, you know, you have to have those hard conversations. And marriage is hard. Marriage is hard. And you have to work on it every single day. You have to work on it every minute of every day. You have to make each other important in each other's lives if you really want to make your marriage work. It's not just it's funny, the other day I saw a quote and it said, everybody's ready and everybody's excited for the wedding, but nobody's ready for the marriage. Like everybody wants to have that wedding and you want to show off your love and, you know, you want to have fun and you want to party and you want to be with your friends and be like, oh, look, this is what we did. And then everybody goes home from the party and you're like, okay, well, what do we do now? Because now you're stuck with that person. You have committed your life to that person. And you're not building up to that big party anymore because now you have to live life. And it's hard. It's a hard road. And it's not something to be taken lightly, especially once you start bringing kids into the factor. Because you are then, if you allow it in your life, you're going to make it that they think it's okay to allow that in their lives when they get older. And that's something that I preach to my kids every day. I'm like, that's not okay. You don't do that. Like, I mean, it's life lessons we give our kids every day. You know, you don't assume that mom's going to do that. Both people do it. We split chores in our house. We split bills in our house. Like, we are a team. We work together. It's not one person's responsibility to clean the house or do the dishes or to work and to make the money or to pay all the bills. Like, we truly work as a team. And that's something that I want to teach my boys when they're older is you respect your wife. She respects you. You are partners in this world and you have each other. Because outside of your family, you are your people. Like, Jeremy and I are best friends. Like, we talk and tell each other everything. We are best friends. And that is the kind of partner you want to have. You want to have a partner that is your best friend. That is that person that you can go to and you can count on no matter what, no matter how hard the situation, no matter what happens, that is going to be your person. And you have to, once you bring kids into a marriage, you have to set that example for them that this is how this works. You have to be respectful of each other. You have to want each other to succeed and to be your best. You don't, you know, like the boys will get lippy with me or they'll raise their voice and their dad is the first one to be like, you don't talk to your mom that way. I don't even have to say it if he's around. He is immediately on them. You don't talk to your mom that way. And I do that for him. Bryce, as he's gotten older and he's gotten bigger, you know, or even Caleb, he's hitting that puberty stage and he thinks he's all Mr. King. And I'm like, you don't talk to your dad like that. You don't talk to your parents like that. And it teaches them respect too. I mean, you know, kids going out and doing things and, you know, it teaches them to respect and to trust you and not hide stuff from you. Because kids pick up on a lot more than you think they pick up on, and they pick up on it at a very young age. And it sets that precedent. Like, they pick up on stuff that you don't even know they're picking up on. And you can try to talk in code all you want to, but that's why you need that separation and that personal time to have that time to talk in privacy to work that issue out. Because your kids then know and your kids learn you need that time with your spouse to work those issues out. And you can talk to them about it if there's things that happen and rise and, you know, come up, but you have to be respectful to each other. You have to, you know, set that ego aside and realize that you're both in it and it's both hard and you both, nobody's perfect as much as we like to think that we are. We're not. And just have that time, because communication is really free and everybody wants the wedding, but not a lot of people want the marriage.
Dude, I love that. I honestly, you said it like right in the beginning of what you said. You guys, the only way I got Mike to change was changing myself. Seriously. That is hands down. And I wasn't even a bad person, but I was doing the wrong things in a lot of situations that I didn't even know or realize because of how I felt about myself. Okay. I didn't love myself enough. How could I love somebody else more? Okay. You can never love anybody else more than you love yourself. So if your own ego and your own self-worth is low, the love you give to your husband is going to be low. Or at the level of love and the love that is low. If you're low on yourself, the level of love that you're going to be able to give is equal. Okay? So the more you begin to focus on you, because it was really easy for me to say, Mike, you're the problem. You're drinking. You're the problem. If you would just stop drinking, our lives would be better. But I don't really think that was the case. Of course, that was the surface, like that's the surface problem. I mean, of course, removing drinking was going to help, but it was not going to fix our relationship. I had to fix me and heal me, or anything I had been through, or anything I'd been through in a past relationship that I brought into Mike, any kind of past family stuff that I had brought onto Mike. I had to move past that stuff and start loving myself more and changing myself. That was the only way Mike met me where I am. I literally had to turn the looking glass on myself. Okay? So I know it's easy to say, how can I change him? Or how can I change our communication? You got to change the communication with yourself.
Hey, Mom.
Are you being truthful to yourself?
Hi, Mom.
Hey, bub, you cleaning? Wow, look at you. That's awesome. So remember, you guys, turn that looking glass on ourselves. Okay? Lead by example. You want them to change? You got to change. You want them to do something different? You have to do something different. You want your extended family to look at you different? You're going to have to be different. Okay? So I'm so excited about this topic for this week. I think I've got lots of stuff that I already want to talk about. I am going to wrap it up just for today, but I think that we're going to continue this talk, and I've got a lot of stuff that I want to put together for us now. But I have just a little reading that popped in my head when Tennille was talking, actually. She was talking about, even though like the chaos of the kids is happening, like how you can kind of focus on your husband, even though he's like walking in the door. And so I just read this little chapter with Elika on this book, and it's literally, I feel like, exactly what you were talking about. So I'm just going to read it, and then we'll kind of move on from there, okay? Hey, I don't need cleaned. I'm already clean. Okay. So this is it's like a 2 paragraphs. So I remember when my children were small and I would pick them up at childcare. It didn't matter how much fun they were having. Okay, go clean. Can you go clean the living room? This is all clean in here. It looks great. Thank you.
I need to make it shiny.
You're making it shiny? Okay. All right. I'm just going to keep reading. Okay. So it didn't matter how much fun they were having with yummy treats to eat and new toys to explore or new friends to play with. The minute I entered the room, They dropped everything and ran as fast as they could into my waiting arms. Nothing was more important to them than I was. As they grew older, however, the toys became more and more interesting to them, until at times I would show up and they would totally ignore me. Much like small children, we live in a world with abundance of treats and toys and friends. They are there for us to enjoy, but never in place of the ones who give the gifts. The jewel of non-possessiveness. I'm going to say that because Elika cannot pronounce that word. Okay, so the jewel of non-possessiveness invites us to enjoy life to its fullest and yet always be able to drop everything and run into the waiting arms of the divine. If we prefer to play with our toys, we have missed the point. Okay. Maybe we can take that to heart. Maybe we can remember that sometimes the toys sitting in front of us, the shiny objects sitting in front of us, are distractions. And we need to go back to the giver of those, right? Like, thanks for the gift, Grandma, but I love you more, right? Like, what if we could just move past all of the distractions, all of the toys, all of the crap sitting in front of us and just go back to the source, right? Like, I love this house, but I love that Mike provides it for us, right? Like, what if we just went back further? Instead of the things that we're sitting in or around, can we thank the person that's providing it for us? Or how can we get past the things sitting in front of us and go back to the divine, right? Like, even Tennille said that she prays, you know, that's going back to the divine. Okay. She's not saying, oh, I'm so glad that you have a job. She's saying, like, thank you for providing for our family, you know? So I just think that may be something that we can kind of look at too, is like, it's so easy to be distracted when our husbands come home with the kids and the toys and all this stuff. But what if the moment he came in that door, we ran to him like he was the first time we've seen him? You know?
And I think that's a lot of times things, you know, where affairs and stuff come in the middle of relationships, is it's that shiny new object and it's easy. And they just think you're so great, because a lot of times we get in the position where we are because we don't feel appreciated, because we're not doing that daily affirmation to our spouse or to ourself. And then something else comes along and we're like, ooh, well, they think I'm just great. And, oh, you're so beautiful. And, blah, and, you know, I mean, it goes both ways, husband and wife. But it's because it's a new distraction in life. And that person makes you feel appreciated. But it's surface. They don't know anything about you. But going back to your spouse and appreciating the person that they are, giving that affirmation, you would be completely surprised at how much just one daily affirmation to yourself and to your spouse will completely change everything about you.
Absolutely. And it starts right there. Because once you do one and you realize how good it feels to send love to your spouse, just off into the air, you realize how good it makes you feel about your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's what keeps that love, is how you feel about your spouse when they're not there.
Yep.
Or when they are there, or when they're in the other room. Like, how do you feel about them? And how do you think about them? Because sometimes there's times where, like, I'm like talking crap to Mike in my head. I'm like, motherfucker, like that little shit, like, oh, like, and I'm just like, okay, I gotta switch that before I go talk to him, because if I talk to him the way that I'm thinking, that's not gonna work, right? Like, I have to maybe calm down in my mind, switch my perspective and say, well, let's just go ask him what his reasoning for that was, right? Like, what is, can I ask you what this is? Because the vibe I'm getting from it, I'm not really sure. So I'm just going to ask for your perspective from it. Because sometimes he'll say something and I'll be like, oh, that's why you were doing that? Like, poof. Well, it didn't even like, that was not even on my radar of why you did that. Because I thought you were doing it because of this. And so because I thought you were doing it because of this, then I did this, which then caused this. And it's a chain reaction, all because miscommunication. Jump
And
into conclusion.
Yeah, it's that totally like think before you speak. And that's why I said like if Jeremy and I, don't see eye to eye on something, we don't immediately attack that situation. Because a lot of times like it doesn't have to be dealt with like right at that second. So it's like, okay, take a step back, take a breath. What was going on? Like, why the heck? And there are times like I'll go to him and be like, what the hell were you thinking when you did that? But it's not me like at him. And there's times that he'll look at me and be like, why did you do that? Or what was going on? Or, why did you make that decision? But we don't as often have those conversations because we've learned to talk to each other before making decisions and working together and working it out and talking it through. And a lot of times it's so funny because even like remodeling on the house or anything like that, and it's like we talk it through. And that was one thing, like I used to get so frustrated with him because I did construction for so long. So it was like, well, I know how to do it. Like, this is how we're supposed to do it. And he's like, well, I got this idea of how to do it. And I'm like, well, no, that's not how you're supposed to do it. So we would talk through, and he still does it. Like sometimes he's like, well, I'm going to do it this way. And I'm like, well, why are you going to do it like that? And we'll talk it through. Most of the time he comes back around to understand why I'm saying it. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, that does make a lot more sense. And I'm like, but we've talked it out, and it doesn't even have to be huge issues. It's little issues that you just like think before you speak and talk it out.
Yeah.
And give that affirmation and give them to your kids, because you start early in life ingraining that into them, of giving them that daily affirmation and just not assuming that, kids have unconditional love for their parents. And parents have unconditional love for their kids, but I think a lot of times it's something that's taken for granted. So you have to give that daily affirmation to your kids also. Like, hey buddy, how's it going? Good morning. My kids will randomly like walk through our living room and be like, hey, love you, mom. Love you too, buddy. And that like, it makes my heart smile because they're acknowledging me. Or I see them and I'm like, hey buddy, what's up? Love you. I'm acknowledging them. They are a person and they are part of that relationship also. They're in that relationship. And when you all work together and you all see that, it makes a huge difference because they feel like they are a part of something. And it's not like you and your spouse and then like the kids are over here and it's just, it's not like you have the head wagon and then you got the little trailer behind it. So it's giving that to your kids also, but you have to do that with your spouse and work with your spouse on that first. And then it will all kind of circle in together.
And I was like just rereading some of these like comments over here. I love that we are chatting it up today. I'm excited. But I saw Brittany had put our struggles are our springboards. So guys, take this moment right now. If you're struggling in your relationship, it's okay. Because you're recognizing it right now. Okay. Maybe you're good in your relationship, but it could be better. Right? Like maybe there's things you're like, we're good. But is it extraordinary? Right? Like, are we pushing ourselves to be better wives? And so I thought that was like, it's okay if you're struggling, but recognize it right now and use it as your springboard and declare right now, I deserve better. My husband deserves better. My family deserves better. We're going to figure this out. But it starts with you. Okay. Look inwards. Admit, maybe, man, we struggle here. We're really good here, but we struggle here. Acknowledge it and then start delving into it. Don't ignore it. maybe Rachel, gosh, it's so crazy that Rachel and Dave, that conversation seems so forever ago already, an hour ago. But maybe they were ignoring it. Maybe they really were just ignoring this very, very important part. And maybe had they acknowledged it, maybe we wouldn't be sitting here saying that we thought they were fakes, right? Maybe they were missing something. But also, I feel like we need to thank Rachel and Dave right now. Like, truly. Saying thank you for being honest. Thank you for coming out, because it created this. Maybe they couldn't save their marriage, but seriously, maybe they just saved 15. Right? Like, who knows? And if that alone is all we got out of it, or they got out of it, maybe they'll be happy that they actually said it too. Right? So I love that our struggles can be our springboards. Sorry, I don't know if you heard Jared, he's like knocking every wall in the house right now.
And I love it too. Like, I mean, if we didn't have Warrior Hour, we wouldn't be in this conversation. We would just be on our chat or on our social media talking about it, not actually delving into it.
Yeah.
And admitting to ourselves what the issues are. Like, I mean, if you truly think about it, it was something that started, oh, we're going to do Warrior Hour. Oh, we're going to do the next 90. And now we're here sitting talking about this, helping each other out, when before it would have just been a surface issue. Because we've all grown over these past months, and just this group that's here has gotten more comfortable to be able to talk to, and for Melissa to, you know, admit that, like, that's huge. And I don't think that's something that she would have felt comfortable or open with saying 2 months ago. So you ladies are awesome. I love what we're doing here. I think it's, you know, we're building not even a stronger team anymore. We're just building stronger women. Snack time. But I mean, I love that, just being able to talk and admit that, you know, we're not perfect. We're not right. I'm excited to talk about this week. I really am. This morning, like, I didn't set my alarms, and I woke up and I was like, ooh, I'm going to get on the call today. But I didn't want to get on the call today. And I'm totally, like, the days I don't want to get on the call, or I'm just like, I was so tired, are the days that I know I need to get on and talk or just listen.
It's funny because actually this morning I woke up and I was like, I actually had a video for today. Like, I was like, I don't know. I was like searching. I'm like, I don't know what to freaking watch. Like, I'm so like distraught by this whole like experience or situation that we found out. And so I did find like a little Les Brown like video that I was like, I will probably watch that. But I was just like, I don't even know what to talk about. I was just like, I don't even know. But then I knew that I wanted to talk at least about Dave and Rachel. So I was like, let's at least address it. I didn't realize that we were going to get whole into like marriage and relationships, but it makes sense. It makes sense that we have obviously like somewhere in the world, something's missing in a lot of relationships, right? Like, and if we can maybe do the work to figure it out, maybe that won't be happening to us. Or maybe it does, right? But maybe we realized that what was happening wasn't right. And instead of staying in it for 10 years, we figured it out in 2. You know, I don't know. I don't know what's right. I can't tell you what's right for your family, but what I do know is that we got to figure it out. And it starts with us. Okay? Yeah, Brittany.
1 second, let me lower my hand. Okay, so before we get off this call, I have to say, like, I almost lost my marriage during this quarantine too. And I feel for Rachel, like, I feel like she has it up here in her head, and that's how I was. I knew what I needed to do, but I wasn't doing it yet. So, like, a lot of people feel so fooled and deceived by her, but what she's presented us with her knowledge is still true, if that makes sense. So, I just don't want like this whole challenge like to go to waste, because I do think she had a lot of insight and she's inspired so many people, and we just had to be grateful for that.
I agree. I think that's actually like a really good point to make, because I was angry, right? Like my initial thought was, so you're just lying and everything you talked about, like, but then I don't think she was. I think really that was them trying to figure it out. Like they really were putting in the work, and maybe you guys sometimes maybe it just doesn't work, you know? And maybe they were grown up enough to acknowledge that, right? Like that had to have been hard. Like that had to have been hard. That's probably why it took them so long to even say it. And in our minds, we could say, I like, okay, yeah, so I could say, oh my gosh, like, was she faking it? Or, wow, they did everything they possibly could to stay together. We saw it. We saw them working together. We saw them doing the videos and really trying and pushing. And maybe it just wasn't right, but we can't say they didn't try. Right? And I agree, dude, Tessa, like maybe in 2 years, maybe like Rachel and Dave get back together. Like, you know, maybe they're like Ross and Rachel of like Friends. Who knows? Like someday they're destined to be back together. I don't know.
It's so true, because I mean, it's, you know, it, like I said when I started, I know a lot of people probably feel fooled by it, and you're like, well, they were just frauds. But I mean, I've been there, and I know what it is. You struggle, and you try to work on it, and you think you're working on it, but you have to come to that point that you just realize. And I think for them, the quarantine and everything made them realize that it was just so much for them to overcome. And I agree, Bethany, with what you said about, you know, people aren't going to listen to them again. And, you know, like you said, Jenny, it was there. I mean, what she says isn't wrong. I mean, what she presents to people isn't wrong, but it's the point of them realizing and having that self-realization that there's just way too much for them to try to do at the same time, that they need to take that step back and not try to focus on everything at once, but taking that step back and realizing, you know, we need this time. We just have to end it, work on it slowly, get to know each other outside of that. And it could be in 2 to 3 years, you know, it's like working with a new employee. You don't have that expectation to try to keep a marriage going, even an intimate one. Like the expectation has to be completely, you know, you have 4 kids and you have a business, 2 businesses that you're trying to run, you got books that you're trying to write, and you're trying to be intimate with somebody that you don't know. There's no intimacy that's going to happen there at all. And you have to have that intimacy to be connected to your spouse or your significant other. But yeah, I agree. They're going to continue to help people, but I think in that helping them, I think also in them admitting it, they're going to reach a completely different kind of community, and they're going to make people realize probably the issues that they do have themselves. And it's a shock to everybody. I mean, most people, when they split up, a lot of times, I mean, it's a shock to everybody, and it's something that you have to work through, but it's something that they're going to grow from. And if that's what you get to grow from, and you learn from a mistake, or you learn from mistakes that you made, and they don't get together, but they're going to co-parent their kids, they're going to be there for their kids, they're going to get along for their kids. I have no doubt in that, just because of the 2 people that they are. But them admitting it and realizing it is huge for them, just because of the people that they are. And to have that, and then to take that time to present it as to how they're going to present it, it's going to be hard. But I agree that, you know, I have hope. You know, I mean, we went through it, we lived through it, we came back stronger than ever. And like I said, we had dated people in between, but you come to the point that it's a lot of surface. person that you're dating doesn't know you, you're not going to open up to them because you just went through something huge and lost a part of your life that you've been living and had all these hopes and dreams for, and you're completely crushed by it. And you have to grow and you have to fix yourself to come back from that. And taking that time for them to fix themselves, I have hope that they'll come back around. And they probably just need that. They need to not have that pressure of being the perfect couple.
Yeah. I wonder if that did get to them. I think that once you create that image
Mm-hmm.
and people start to idolize you and put you on a pedestal, and it feels good to kind of follow it. Like, it feels good to kind of be like, oh, I kind of like that everybody likes us. I kind of like that people want to be us. I kind of like that we look a certain way. I really like it. But then there also comes a point, is it true? Right? Like, I would love for you guys to think that Mike and I are perfect, but I know it's more important to let you know we're definitely not. Definitely not. Like, definitely not. Okay? I need to say that again. Please do not idolize me. Please do not put me on your pedestal. No, I'm just kidding. But like, for real, you guys, we have to remember that we did that to them. We're part of it. We were part of the reason as to why it was probably so hard to say it. Because we idolized them. They fed into it because it probably felt good. Right? So I think we just always have to kind of remember things like that, you know, that we influence certain people to also continue or not continue a certain way. And maybe somebody just finally said, like, Rachel, you don't have to do this. Like, you don't have to be whatever these people think that you are. Like, you don't have to do that anymore. I just want you to be you. And maybe somebody just gave her that permission to just be human and say, hey, you gotta follow your heart. You know? And so who knows? Maybe we'll get a new Rachel, a better Rachel, a real Rachel. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what's good or bad, right? Who knows? So it is 9:40. So I love you guys. We're going to continue this conversation tomorrow. So what I would love for you guys to do is, as you're going through the day, have a notebook out, because I know you're going to think of things. Okay, so have it laying on your counter. I know we're going to think of things, or maybe something will happen today, or maybe your husband walks through the door and you ran and jumped in his arms and hugged him and kissed him. Whatever it is, I want you to write it down. Maybe you find a quote, maybe you find a video, maybe you talk to somebody else about this and they say something. Please, please, please write it down. And we're going to come back tomorrow and we're going to continue this conversation, because there's so much to delve into. Right now, we've touched the surface of relationships. We've opened Pandora's box. Now it is time to dig through all of her crap. Okay? And who knows what kind of people we're going to come out as the other side. But I know it's super important work that we need to do. Okay? So thank you, ladies, for being so open and honest and willing to share and talk, and even in the chat. Like, I know it's not easy, but if we can support each other and know that we have each other to be here for each other, whew, we can change a lot. I feel really good about this. I feel really good about this. All right, ladies. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for today. I really appreciate that. I'm going to cry, so I'm going to end the meeting. But thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow, okay? All right. Bye.